Tyson, welcome to the Degrassi Kid podcast. Thank you so much for doing this. This is truly like a dream come true for me.
Thank you for having me, Jocelyn. It's a long time in the making. We've been trying to put this together.
I know, I was so nervous, but I'm so glad that we got to meet each other in person first. And then now we have even more to reflect on with the Walk of Fame and stuff. So that'll be exciting.
Yes, definitely.
The place that I wanted to start with is I always like to tell people how I kind of get connected to Degrassi people like you. And ours goes back a little further because Colleen Lamb is the person who actually reached out. She had let me know that you guys were doing this Degrassi Junior High viewing party on like the top of a rooftop. And it had been years since you had done any type of Degrassi events. I'm curious, how did it come about that you were going to be a part of that Degrassi Junior High event that happened?
So apparently, Colleen was at Retro Ontario Retro TV Museum. She saw me down there. She connected with me on one of the social apps, and she actually really put it all together. She connected with the curator there. They reached out to me after via Colleen, of course.
Yep.
And that's how that's the short and sweet of it. Colleen did everything.
Wow. And what went through your mind when you were asked to be a part of this?
As you said, it's been a long time since I've been in the Degrassi realm. So I think at first I was a little nervous, but also a little excited. And I think probably the day before, maybe the day of, I was like, "Are you sure you want to do this? It's been so long." And no, I said I can't disappoint. Let's go. So I drove downtown Toronto, and Colleen and I did the viewing, and we did the Q&A, and it was a lot of fun.
Wow. Can you describe it for us fans who didn't get to go? Because I don't live in Toronto, so I never actually get to go to these things, which is so sad. But can you describe what was the experience like? You guys, like it was on a rooftop. Like what, give us, set the vibe for us.
It was on a rooftop, probably about the sixth or seventh floor up. There was a large screen, probably 60 or 70 people, I guess.
Wow.
We just went upstairs onto the rooftop. The weather wasn't that great. Rain was imminent. Okay. So we were a little hesitant. Okay, let's do this. Let's start the viewing early. We did that. Of course, we watched the first one. Billy breaks the chain, and it started raining. So then we all came back inside. It was right after the Q&A, that is, sorry.
Yeah, wow. That's so fun. How long had it been before you did that event that since you had seen those episodes?
My youngest son is, enamored with Dad, and it's Dad, let's watch it. So I've watched them quite a bit over the years with my kids, particularly. Yeah.
That is adorable. That brings me joy because everyone's always hit or miss. Either they like avoid them like the plague, they're so embarrassed because they were kids, or they show them to
Yeah.
their family, or their families are like, we're showing everybody this. That is so cute.
Yeah.
What was it like for you to connect with fans so long after being on the show?
That was exciting. It was really nice that people remembered me. They were excited to see me. They were asking questions, asking me to sign autographs. As you said, it had been 30 plus years.
Yeah.
So it was different, but I was quite grateful, to be honest.
That is so cool. I know. I remember seeing the posts about it and just like someday I just got to go to move to Toronto for like a year so I can actually go to these Degrassi events because I had so much FOMO. Like, I can't believe it
Yeah.
Jason and Vivian for Degrassi. So
You get to go to quite a few though.
yeah, I guess I can't complain about the events that I get to go to. You're
Right.
right. A lot of fans, of course, remember you from Degrassi Junior High as Jason, but as we all know, you started as Billy on the Kids of Degrassi Street. So what I'd love to do today is go through each episode and see what memories you have from being on the Kids of Degrassi Street. Does that sound cool?
That sounds great.
Sweet. The first place I want to start is with the casting of Degrassi. Do you remember how you found out about this role or this opportunity?
Yeah. Mrs. Wittrock, the librarian. Well, let me back it up. The Kids of Degrassi Street was created by Linda Schuyler, as we all know, in Kidhood. Playing with Time Incorporated was the production company. They passed out a bunch of applications to all the local public schools. At the time, I went to Dundas Public School in Toronto. Mrs. Wittrock, the librarian, called myself, Lisa Williams, and another boy, I can never remember his name, down to the library and said, "Here, you guys were in the Annie play. Annie,
Yep.
the girl with the red hair and Daddy Warbucks."
Yeah.
So Lisa, who played Annie, and I played Daddy Warbucks, Mrs. Wittrock thought it was a good idea to give us the applications to apply to be on the show.
Oh, that's
That's how it
adorable.
all started for me.
I didn't realize that you were already connected with Lisa before being on Degrassi. That's incredible.
That's right. Lisa and I went to public school together.
Oh my God. See, this is why I love doing these interviews because I get to learn all
Yeah,
these facts that I didn't know before. So that's really, really exciting.
grade two. I met Lisa.
That
Yeah,
is so cute. And do you remember the process? You fill out the form, you go to Playing with Time. Do you remember the process of auditioning and meeting them?
yeah. So we had a couple of workshops in the basement of this old church, Wood Green Church, which is no longer there. It's now condominiums.
Of course.
Um, there was some workshops, so tumbling, cartwheels, walking on a straight line, checking your dexterity and your posture, your speech patterns, things like that. And if you got past that stage, then you went on to the audition stage. It was at the office, and that's where we read some scripts, and yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember if you felt confident where you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get this?
I remember if I really felt confident. I
Hmm.
was really young. I was like 10 years old, right?
Hmm.
So I think it was just exciting. You're going to be on TV.
Yeah.
I don't know. Mrs. Wittrock thought it was a good idea. I was excited. I was in the school play. It was just more acting at that time, and I guess at 10 years old, I thought it was cool.
I love that. That's really cool. One of the fan questions we had was, do you remember if you auditioned with any other kids? Like, did you audition with Arlene Lott, John Ianu, Stacey Musician, or when did you first start to kind of meet the other Degrassi kids?
So what I remember from the auditions is we were in a room.
Mhm.
It was recorded. This huge old VHS camcorder was massive.
Yeah.
And then we were given a script or a couple of pages of a script,
Hmm.
and it was read this. So we read it, and then Linda would say, "Okay, now try it like this," and then we would change, the tone and the delivery and the facial expression, et cetera, et cetera. And did that a few times, and then I don't remember meeting anyone necessarily at the auditions, but I
Hmm.
recall other kids coming in and out.
Oh, cool.
So the auditions, if I remember correctly, there was a couple of rooms at the back of the office, and I came in, signed in. My name's Tyson. Yada. Come out. There was another boy or girl coming in, and then as the next person come out, there was another boy or girl coming in. It was quite interesting.
That's cool. I'm impressed by how much you actually remember. Sometimes yeah, like I'm so aware, not only are we going back in time, but also like you're a child and you can recall these questions. So that's pretty
That
cool.
was 43 years ago.
Wow. I'm turning 31 this year, so wasn't even there. Maybe I would have been a Degrassi kid, who knows. I want to see if you have any memories of
That's
taking
right. You are a Degrassi kid.
I am forever. I want to see if you have any memories of taking this photo and if you can confirm for the fans, why the frick are you holding a bird cage?
So the funny thing about that photo is I wasn't part of the cast at the time when that photo was taken. That was all the kids walking home from school. I myself being one of them, as I mentioned to you, going to school with Lisa.
Yeah.
They may have been filming Ida at the time. Ida makes a movie. So we were all walking home, and they asked us, a bunch of kids walking down the street, "Do you want to get in this picture?" Sure. We knew there was cameras. They were filming on the street and whatever. And I can't remember who it was, John or somebody else. They said, "Oh, here, hold my cage." So I held the cage. They took the picture. That's the entire story. Good.
That is incredible.
Yeah,
You're so right because you are significantly younger in this one than you are in the first episode that you appear in. That's so right.
that's right. That's the
Wow.
year. That's the year before.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm glad we got to the bottom of this. I've seen this picture 100,000 times and thought,
Right.
why is he holding a bird cage? Now we
It's
know.
everyone asks, and that's the story behind the birdcage. But it,
I
it
love it.
just fit. It fit with the entire theme of Degrassi, just
Yeah.
kids being kids, right?
Yeah.
And I guess somebody was doing show and tell or something at school, and I ended up with their birdcage. It's pretty funny.
That is adorable. Our next fan question comes from Colleen Lamb. Today, she has a few questions for us, but this one, we know I'm going to go through episode by episode. But before we even reflect on those episodes, she wants to know when you think of Degrassi, what's the most memorable experience you have from working on the Kids of Degrassi Street?
Oh, there's so many. Okay. Probably the most memorable experience I had was the sleepovers at Linda and Kit's house. When we had had shoots that were a little further away than our normal locations. So there was many times that myself, Stacy, John, Sarah Charlesworth, pardon me, we stayed over at Linda and Kit's house so that we were all together, all got up in the morning. Linda and Kit made sure we had a really healthy breakfast, that we were ready for our day to go out on set and film. Those are the best times.
So cool. I bet that also has to be a little bit of a helping create chemistry between the kids, because now you're all comfortable with each other and friends with each other. So that's definitely got to help, I'd say. The first episode that you appear in is called Pete Takes a Chance from 1983, which for the listeners, I want to put into context for them that is the 8th episode of Degrassi out of over 500, which is an incredible feat. I'm curious, actually, one of the questions I do have first is, in that episode, you don't have a name officially, but it sounds like the kids are calling you Kit. They're either calling you Kid, K-I-D, or Kit, K-I-T. Do you remember if your character had a name in the first episode?
That script was Kid, K-I-D.
Oh, okay. Good to know. I was listening and couldn't tell.
The character, I hadn't actually been officially assigned to be Billy as yet. It was just Kid in that episode, And then subsequent episodes, it was Billy.
It was Billy. Do you remember the feeling of being on camera for the first time and being an actor?
Very nervous. Very nervous. We didn't have any, or at least for myself, I didn't have any professional training or experience. All my experience came from what I learned at school with, as I mentioned earlier, Mrs. Whitrock, the librarian. So I was nervous. I was nervous, but as I'm sure you've heard it many times, Linda was amazing. She treated us all with, pardon the pun, but kid gloves. and we got through it.
I like that. I think that's too the charm of hiring real kids without experience, because you see yourself on TV, right? All the kids watching on TV, it feels more natural to see someone who looks like you or sounds like you and is the same age as you and has the same level of acting experience as you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting for sure.
Do you remember how the transition from going to this kind of like one-off unnamed character to then officially becoming Billy Martin?
I don't think there was very much transition. I at that point, I kind of anticipated. I can't really remember that well, but I think it was either already known that I was getting Billy, or I anticipated that I was going to get Billy.
Oh, I like that. That's cute. And you're the perfect Billy.
I thought I did a great job. Thank you.
I think you did good.
Yeah.
The next episode that you appeared in is my favorite episode from the Kids of Degrassi Street. It's the one called Benjamin Walks the Dog. And the reason this is my favorite is because as a kid, I graduated around 2011 for a perspective of how old I was. The idea that two kids could go to the convenience store and buy cigarettes was crazy to me. And that's the whole central theme of this episode. So I wanted to ask, is that truly what it was like? You could go to the convenience store and buy cigarettes as a 10-year-old kid?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Without a doubt, 100%, we were able to go to the store and buy cigarettes. Depending on the store owner, your auntie or your mom or your dad or your grandma or whomever would write a little note on the inside of their empty cigarette package. Hi, Mrs. Smith, whatever. Can you give Tyson export a regular? Thank you, Marge.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. My mom always shares a story with me of how her grandmother would send her to the bank with a note and stick it in her glove mitt in the wintertime. And she would go to the bank and take out money for her grandma with just a little piece of paper that said her name on it. So funny to think about.
Different times for sure.
Yeah. I also love I'm going on the idea that maybe not everyone who's listening to this podcast has seen every episode of the Kids of Degrassi Street, but that one is also particularly funny to me because it's all about cigarettes, of course. So the mom, your guys' mom in the show, she's smoking a cigarette while cooking dinner, and it's just like blowing in her kids' faces while they're eating. And I think it's so, I love the show because of how it makes me understand a little bit about what the world was like whenever you guys were growing up as kids. So I really, really like those little elements of the show.
Yeah, it was as I said, it was a different time, but mom smoking, stirring the pot with the kids at the table doing homework was commonplace in the 70s and 80s, right?
I love it.
Yeah, and before, obviously.
Yeah, what makes that episode feel so special too is there's some cameos in that episode. Sari Friedland, who was the
Yeah,
production manager, she owned Degrassi Grocery,
yeah,
and Linda was a cashier. Did it make it
yeah.
any different to work in a scene with them versus working with other kids?
Not with Sari, but with Linda, yes.
Yeah, how so?
I was nervous working in a scene with Linda, not with Sari. Sari was like the favorite auntie that just kind of loved on all of us, right? And and while Linda loved on all of us, she was the boss,
Yeah,
So it was a little more nervous working with Linda for sure.
I get that. She has a job to do, so I get that. I would be nervous
That's
too.
right.
Oh, this question actually came in from Degrassi CSI, who's from Hawaii, and they wanted to know, were you friends with anyone outside of the show?
So I was friends with, as we talked about earlier, Lisa Williams,
Hmm.
Arlene Lott. I went to school with. Rachel runs for office. John Iowano, I also went to school with. Craig Driscoll, I knew from the area. There was a lot of kids that all grew up in the east end of Toronto. For perspective, for those that don't know, the east end of Toronto is from, let's call it Yonge Street to Victoria Park, Lawrence to the lake beaches. And that's where Playing with Time was. So we all grew up in that area in some sort of fashion.
Oh, that's so cute. It's always interesting to
Yeah.
find out who knew each other before or even stayed connected during the show. Mike from Alberta, this may be jumping a little more into junior high territory, but I interviewed Craig Driscoll, who was on the Degrassi Kid podcast. And
Yeah.
when I asked him about his friends on the show, he
Yeah.
said that you were the person he got along with most and even stayed the most connected to over the years. Can you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about how you guys became friends and why you think you connected so well?
So I've known Craig since I was probably 9 or 10 years old. That would have been Greenwood Park days. I played baseball at Greenwood Park. We called him Craigie. Craigie used to ride BMX and skateboard and things like that. So he was forever jumping curbs and ramps and always getting a little little bump on his elbow or his hand or his knee or whatever. But I've known Craig for a very long time, and yeah, we were always good buddies. We had a lot of friends in common, partook in a lot of the same activities, high school parties and whatnot. Yeah, so I've known Craig Driscoll a very long time.
That is so cool. I love that. Our Degrassi fan Mike, he had some specific kids that he wanted to know if you had hung out with them. Jamie Summerfield, who played Martin, Ryan Anderson, who played Ryan, and Tommy Max, who played Candy. He specifically wanted to ask about them because they left the show before you had left the show. So he's curious, did you guys end up staying in touch with those kids, even if they had left the show?
So Jamie Summerfield and I
Hmm.
actually have a bit of a family connection, family friends, if you will. And the other two, no.
Yeah.
But I haven't spoken to Jamie probably 10 plus years.
Yeah.
But we were good friends through our young adulthood.
That is so cute. It
Yeah.
astounds me that anyone even keeps in touch because, now we have cell phones, we have Facebook, we have Instagram. It's so
That's it.
I can check on any single person from my childhood. I can only imagine the lengths it took to stay connected after being children in the
Mm.
70s and 80s.
It was a little more challenging for sure.
I'm not sure if you were around when this was happening, but I know the Degrassi Junior High kids, they actually made a yearbook. So they had like pictures of themselves and they put their phone numbers and like little messages in it so they could keep connected whenever the show wasn't on, which I thought was pretty cute.
Oh, that's very nice.
I
I
know
wasn't around for that, but that's very nice.
that makes sense. Rachel runs for office. This is
Uh-huh.
one of the best ones. To describe it for those listening, you and Arlene Lott, who plays Rachel, are running for student council against each other. And it's one of those classic stories where Arlene plays the kind of nerdy kid with strict rules and maybe a little more ambition than Billy, who is the party guy, the kind of guy who just wants to get free pizza in the calf. Do you have any memories from filming this episode specifically?
I was very nervous about doing what we called the speed bump while filming. I was never much of a dancer, really.
Mhm.
But in those days, the break dancing was out, so I was what they called a dancer, as opposed to a breaker, someone who's on the floor.
Yeah.
And we came out with that episode. Again, it was all about timing, right? Break dancing was relevant at the time, and it was popular.
Yeah.
Hence, how it got inserted into the episode about Rachel and I, Arlene, pardon me, running for class president or whatever. I don't recall if it was class president or school president, but yeah.
Yeah, it was something in the government. They were asking for like sixth graders to come represent the class and speak about issues. So it was like kind of
Mm.
a student council president, but maybe a little more specific, which is pretty cool.
Right. Yeah.
Uh, that's good to know because James from South Carolina wanted to know if you were interested at all in dancing in real life, but it sounds like you weren't.
No, I wasn't. No.
That's
No.
that would be terrifying then, because I know sometimes Degrassi will pinpoint like if you can play an instrument, they'll work it in and put you in a band or something.
Yeah.
But if somebody asked me to just do a dance, I would be petrified. So good for you for being brave enough to do it.
Thank you.
Do you think there were any similarities that you did share with Billy the character?
A lot of similarities. The sportsmanship. I played hockey, baseball, soccer. Um, so, as you said, as you just mentioned, production did a good job of picking kids with a certain skill set to represent the character, or that the character could represent. Being sporty just made sense for me to be in that role. It wouldn't have made sense for, I don't know, John Iuano, who didn't play sports, for example. His role was perfect for him, right?
Yeah,
There was a direct correlation between the person and the character, and again, production did a good job at putting us in those good positions.
I like that. That makes sense because I would be shocked to learn if you didn't have experience with hockey and then you were so good at playing hockey on TV. I, again, could not do that if they asked me to do that.
Right, right.
The finale of the Kids of Degrassi Street is called Griff Gets a Hand. That's where all the kids graduate from elementary school. They all say goodbye. What about this episode? You know, it's the final one of Kids of Degrassi Street. Do you have any standout memories from your last days filming it, what that one episode was like?
I don't recall Griff Gets a Hand filming it a whole bunch.
Mhm.
Um, I do remember the big party we had after, but I don't recall. I don't even, I think might have had a bit part in Griff Gets a Hand, probably kind of in the back scenes. Again, production did a good job of keeping us involved, even when the episode wasn't focused on our character.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can't remember if I've already told you this, but we're going to play some trivia later about Billy and Jason, and I have some trivia from that episode. So now I'll be interested to know if you remember your part that you do play in it.
Oh my goodness.
Best of luck when that comes. Do you remember any feelings of like the series coming to an end? Did you think it was over? Did you know junior high was on the precipice? Do you remember anything from that kind of transitionary period?
We did know that the kids was, as we call it, KODS.
Yeah.
Um, but we did know that it was coming to an end, and we had an opportunity to um, audition for, in my case, Jason Cox.
Oh, that's so cool.
And it was at first, I think I recall, for me at least, that I was a little bit thrown, like, oh, why are you changing my character, or why do I have to change characters? But in reality, it was, and I don't really know why, but the character was Billy with a new name,
Okay.
right? So it was still in DGH, the swimming episode, the Great Race, right?
Yeah.
Um, I was swimming because I was on the swim team in real life.
That was gonna want to be one of my questions is did you swim in real life? So that's kind of how that got worked into your character being like in the swim competition.
Correct.
Oh, that's so cool. I learned through some of like reading Linda's book and learning about the history of Degrassi that one of the reasons they were actually terrified to change the names of the kids because they were keeping the name Degrassi to kind of entice viewers, but then they were going to be watching different kids. And they were
Yeah,
so nervous that having different names was going to be an issue. Clearly, not an issue, worked out. But they
worked out
always,
great.
yeah, they always tell a story of how they had kind of asked kids, do you want to play a new character or do you want to keep your old one? And they always talk about how there was only a handful of kids that were like, I kind of want to play my old one, or like, why am I not playing my old one? And they
Yeah.
never revealed who, but now I know you were one of those kids who was like, why am I not playing?
Well, I was curious, right? I mean, I
Yeah,
didn't care. I was still excited to be part of the show and
yeah,
move on to junior high. But, that was me. I was always asking questions.
yeah. I like that. No, that's cool. And do you feel any differences, now that the Linda, Kit, and everyone on the team has a little bit more experience. You guys have more experience as actors. Now there's like different locations, there's more of a budget. Did you feel any differences between filming the Kids of Degrassi Street and Degrassi Junior High?
Yeah, definitely. Budget was one of the major things that was very noticeable. Production got quite large,
Mhm.
or larger, I should say. it just seemed to go from, not that Kids of Degrassi was unprofessional,
Mm.
but it seemed to get more polished.
Mm.
And that's how I recall it. It was the schedule was on time, craft showed up, everybody ate, things like that. It just became more routine, more polished, right?
Yeah.
Kids was, I think we were all learning, both Linda, Al as well. Like everybody was learning through Kids of Degrassi Street, and junior high was the next thing, right?
Yeah.
It
Proving
was it was
yourself,
different. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
That's cool. That's the way I always see it. I always see the Kids of Degrassi Street, particularly those last like 6 episodes where they do that big yearbook bundle. They feel like the stepping stones into Degrassi Junior High of like, okay, we practiced, we figured out how to make a show. Now
Yeah.
let's try 13 episodes in a row and see what happens. So
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it was excellent. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any stories or standout memories from filming that episode of The Great Race?
Yes. One that always comes up is a question that everyone asks,
Mm-hmm.
and I think you and I may have discussed it. The actual race. I obviously didn't win.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't win. That's it. But
Do
I
you
just
think in
didn't
real
win.
life, do you think in real life you would have won that competition?
No.
That is hilarious. That makes me laugh so much. I love that. Made me laugh so much that I forgot what my next question is. That's hilarious. Shoot, it just came into my head. You Okay, I'll just move on to the next. I just thought about it and that made me laugh so much that I totally forgot about it. I think one of the oh no, I wanted to tell you a story. That's what it was that this episode, The Great Race, is actually the very first episode of Degrassi I ever watched in my whole life. It
Mhm.
was it like, okay, for clarity, Degrassi appears on TV all the time. So like sometimes it would be, I'd catch the last 2 minutes before the next show came on or something, but actually sit down and watching it. It was my grade 7 health class. And
Okay.
I remember specifically they wheeled in the TV with the VCR. And I think in any other class, you'd be excited to watch a movie, but in health class, it's always like, oh God, they like show you birth and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But I remember the teacher, it's so funny now because I love the show so much. But I remember my teacher at the time, I'm like 14, my teacher's like 30, which felt pretty old at the time. And I'm
Mhm.
31 now. And I remember he told us, like, hey, we're going to watch this movie about like your changing and developing bodies and what it's like to go through puberty, specifically Melanie's character with the bathing suit. And I
Right.
think it's so funny to think back now that at the time I was like cringing and I couldn't wait for it to be over because we were teenagers all watching this health video together. And now here I am, Degrassi Kid, interviewing Jason Cox from that episode. Now I love that episode and reflect on it fondly. But such a funny turn.
It was a lot of fun filming the Great Race, actually. I have
I love
fond
that.
memories.
Oh, I like that. And why is it that you only appear in the Great Race?
So I think I did two. Kiss Me Steph, Kiss
Oh
Me
yeah.
Kate, and the Great Race. And I left on my own accord.
Hmm.
Um, as I recall it, much to the disappointment and dislike of, we'll just say, production.
Yeah, totally fair. I mean, also your children, right? So like it's I think sometimes people ask this question and they're thinking like you're the lead of a CW show, you've had a contract for 5 years and you're leaving. But I mean, you're kids. It makes so much
Yeah,
sense that if you're just
yeah.
not feeling up to it, you're just not feeling up to it.
Yeah, I wanted to play sports and hang with my buddies, and
Yeah.
it took up quite a bit of my time. I'm grateful for it.
Mhm.
Probably wasn't the best decision as a 15-year-old boy, but we don't always make good ones at 15, 16 years of age. So there you are.
How would you know, right? Like, because I know Degrassi didn't even really like, yes, it was a popular show and people loved it, but then it's really the reruns that brought it to life through finding a new audience and finding it across the world. So like, how would you even know, an episode or a few episodes into Degrassi Junior High that it was going to become more than just like a summer job that aired on CBC a couple of times, right? How would you have known?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I started when I was 10.
Yeah.
So,
It's like five
right,
years.
there's 5 years as a, adolescent, pre-adolescent boy,
Yep.
took up quite a bit of my time. But again, grateful for it.
Yeah.
But I guess I probably should have stayed.
It's okay. We can always only ever look back. Our next question again comes from Colleen Lamb because she
Oh,
wanted to ask about Canada's Walk of Fame and
yeah.
ask what was it like to go to that event and reconnect with cast members after so many years?
It was amazing. I really enjoyed myself. I met so many great people, met you in person, talked with a lot of cast members from subsequent series, junior high, high, next class, and so on. And it was a really great evening. And I was honored that Linda and Steven had invited me.
That's the other thing I was going to ask is how did this opportunity come up, especially again, out of the Degrassi spotlight for so many years, and then now you're on the stage being one of the kids that represents the show. How did
Mhm.
that come up?
So Linda, the mother of all Degrassi, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've been in touch with Linda off and on over the years for probably 10 or 15. The last 10 or 15 years I reconnected with her. And we talked once in a while and a few emails back and forth and a couple of texts and then when it came up, I got an email in my inbox and I think it was from Steven at first.
Mm-hmm.
And this event is coming up. Would you like to join us?
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I was so thankful for it. I remember seeing you and thinking, oh my God, I get to meet him in real life. I was Star Trek. I thought it was one of the coolest things. One of my coolest
Yeah.
experiences ever.
It was amazing for sure. Yeah.
Cool. We had another Degrassi fan who had a little bit more specific of people because you reconnected with people like Zoe Newman and Nancy Lamb. They were like the OG kids, like 1979 started the series. And
Yeah.
they wanted to know when you're meeting kids from your past like this, do you guys recognize each other right away or does it take a moment to connect the dots now that you guys are all grown up?
So Zoe, I recognized right away.
Hmm.
Nancy, I did not, but she ran up to me, Tyson, oh my God. And I was like, she was Nancy. Oh my goodness. It has been, as we said, it's been 40 plus years, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, Zoe, I recognized right away. I saw you interviewed her a little while ago.
Same
Um,
face, just on an adult's body. That's it.
right? So I recognized her right away, but Nancy, I didn't. And most of them I recognized right away. Again, we see them on socials and whatnot. So you kind of,
Yeah.
what they look like. So yeah.
That is so cool. Do people ever recognize you from Degrassi?
Yes.
Do you have any memories or any experiences you can share with us?
Yeah. So when I left when I was 15,
Hmm.
the first one that I recall, I was with a girl I was dating at 16 and a half. We were at McDonald's. And so this was quite a long time ago, obviously.
Hmm.
We were at McDonald's. We were at McDonald's. And it was a group of about, 10 or so, 10, 12-year-old girls. And they're like, Billy! And they started screaming at McDonald's, asking for an autograph. There was a
Oh,
couple of the parents were there. Two or three parents were with this group of young girls, and yeah, I was signing autographs on napkins at McDonald's in 1988.
oh my God. How did that experience make you feel?
It made me feel pretty special. Yeah,
I would feel so famous. That is so cool. I
yeah,
hope they have those McDonald's napkins framed on their wall somewhere. That's incredible.
right. Hopefully. Yeah, I was always grateful for the experience and the interaction with the fans.
Yeah, that is so cool. Whenever I interviewed Zoe, she had told me this really interesting story that she had saved up all of her Degrassi paychecks. And whenever she turned like 11 or 12, it was her job to start doing the dishes at her house. So she
Uh-huh.
saved up all of her Degrassi money and bought her family a dishwasher so she didn't
Yep,
have to do the dishes. I'm
that's awesome.
curious, you're now a kid or a teenager with these first paychecks. Do you have any special stories of the first thing you bought with your Degrassi paycheck?
I don't recall specifically, other than, and I don't know if it was my first or second paycheck.
Hmm.
Probably my second, because my first would have been quite small, being the kid in
True.
Pete Takes a Chance.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have been enough to buy much. Um, so I bought a pair of runners.
Oh, that
I
is
bought a pair of running shoes
cute.
on Young Street, pair of Converse, leather Converse. I remember that. Yeah.
Oh wow. I like that. That's so cute. I always like to know what's the first thing that you're like, finally, I don't have to wait for allowance to come in. I can get this myself.
I don't have to ask my parents. This is amazing, right?
Exactly. Oh, actually, I wanted to also ask because yes, we did the Walk of Fame event together, but
Yep.
then Linda and Steven had thrown kind of like a Christmas party, Walk of Fame party. At the
Yep.
original event, for everybody listening, they had 25 Degrassi kids because it was the 25th year of the Walk of Fame. But then at this party, there was people, there was like, oh my God, a million. I'm going to guesstimate a million people at this party.
Yeah. It
Did you
was, yeah.
did you get to reconnect with anyone or any interesting stories you can share with us?
Again, with social media in this day and age, we all kind of, we're liking each other's pictures. And Arlene does a lot of really great, I'm going to call it baking. I don't know if that's the correct term,
Yep.
but a lot of great cakes and pies and really intricate, detailed stuff. So often I see her work, and I'm liking her stuff in little comments. Um, Stacy Mistison, she's often posting stuff, and so there wasn't really a lot to. It was nice to see everyone, but a
Yep.
lot of us are connected anyway.
That feels so nice to know. I like that. It was
Yeah,
cool on my end as a Degrassi fan. I got involved with this whole like Degrassi world on Linda's side because they hired me to be a publicist for Linda's book. So sometimes I had to be professional, like when I'm giving a speech on stage, and sometimes I got just to stand there and be a Degrassi fan. I was in that room with my autograph book out, getting you guys to sign pictures. But a standout memory that I have is just standing there and watching you and Arlene chat together because I'm a
yeah,
fan of the episode Rachel Runs for Office. And I remember just being
right.
like, what is my life right now that I'm just watching them have a conversation together? It felt so
Yeah,
freaking cool.
it was definitely nice to see her in person and chat with her and catch up real quick. It was definitely nice.
That's so cool. I'm curious if you have kept anything from your time at Degrassi. Do you have a script, a shirt, any kind of mementos or anything from them?
I have a few calendars
Oh, sick.
with that picture on it. I don't have any scripts. I have a couple of contracts.
That's cool.
I think that's probably about it. Oh, we got a camera one year for. We used to go to the Queen's Key and do a viewing every year. And yeah, so this one year, production had given all the kids these. They weren't VHS. I think they were 8-track video cameras, and on it had an engraved. It had a gold plate on it engraved Tyson. I think it said Tyson Billy Talbot, the Kids of Degrassi Street. So I still have that camera.
That is so cute. If
Yeah,
if possible, if it's anywhere near you, could you ever take a picture of it and send me a picture of the camera?
I definitely. I'll try to dig it up.
If
Yes.
you ever stumble on it, I just need to see that. That's so cool. I wanted
Yeah.
to show you. I have a few Degrassi Kids of Degrassi Street things in my collection, but I have this on my front bedroom door, so I get to see your face every single day of my life. It hangs on
Yeah.
my front door, and it's probably one of the coolest. This actually came from their name's Yan Moore. He had
Yeah.
donated this to a charity auction, and so
Yeah.
I had seen it, and I was like, I need that in my life. So I wanted to show that to you.
Ian was a super nice guy.
Yeah, we love Yan. I have only a few more questions for you before we get to trivia, but I'm curious about what your kind of general relationship is like with Degrassi because I've kind of two things to set this question up. One is that you were on the oh my God, you're at the beginning of Degrassi, and then it goes on TV forever. The reruns with Junior High, TNG comes out with a reboot. Now it's on Netflix and Amazon Prime. So kind of through that lens. And another lens is that most people I interview have a story where they stayed on it until they were 18 or 19. They liked their time, but then they're like kind of over it. They're like, yeah, okay, like I was that Degrassi kid, but I'm growing up now. And then they become adults and go, wait, that was actually kind of cool that I was on Degrassi. So I'm curious through whatever lens that resonates with you, what's your relationship like with Degrassi now, or what has it been like over the years?
Um, I think over the years I was a little distant through my 20s, 30s. Yeah, through my 20s, 30s, 20s and late teens, 20s, 30s, I stayed away altogether, as you know,
Hmm.
and then reconnected with Linda. And there was some contact as we discussed a little bit. But I'm probably of the similar opinion or feeling that you had mentioned about other cast members, right?
Hmm.
The difference being I started very young, so I feel like I almost phased out in at 15, 16.
Hmm.
Whereas some of those other cast members that you referenced may have started at 12, 13, 14, and 5, 6 years later they phase out.
Yeah.
It's almost like there's not necessarily a time stamp or a date of expiry, but there's cycles. It's like having a job and then you're looking for a promotion, right? So
Yep.
you stay in this job. Okay, I've been doing this. I've been building houses, for example, for 10 years. I'm a framer. When do I get to become a foreman?
Yeah.
Right? Or progress further on in that industry, for example. So
Yeah.
I think that everyone sort of, not everyone, most people, there's a life cycle, right?
Yeah, I think that makes
Yeah.
total sense because that's like the number one, again, not everybody, but the most common story is you've done it for so long, you're
Yeah.
grateful for what happened, you love it, but you're like just ready to try something new. And I think
Yeah.
I think as you said, that happens in everybody's position. So that's a great way to look at it. I like that. How do you feel knowing, you've reconnected with Degrassi, you've met fans at events, people recognized you in McDonald's as Billy, you represented the show on Canada's Walk of Fame. How does it feel for you that you were a part of this huge franchise like Degrassi?
So yeah, I'm grateful. I'm honored. I'm thankful for my time on Degrassi. Um, Grateful that I was able to. Walk of Fame was a really amazing experience.
Mhm.
Talking with and speaking with friends and family just to sort of button it up. They're like, "Do you know how cool that is that you're going to the Walk of Fame?" I was like, "Yeah, I guess so." And at first, it was kind of like it's just another Degrassi event. I've been doing this since I was 10 years old,
Yep.
right? But when you sit back after I sat back and had an opportunity to really think about it, I'm thankful for all of my experiences as it pertains to Degrassi for sure.
That is incredible. And I am going to keep you on the hook because I'm going to play trivia with you in a minute. But I
Okay.
just want to emphasize how much, when I had posted online that you were coming on, how much excitement there was because, like, you haven't done a lot of Degrassi interviews in the past. Some of the people we hear from, they've done them all over the years and stuff. So I know there are so many people who submitted questions that were so excited that they got to connect with you and hear from you. So I
Yeah.
want you to know that, and I just want to say a heartfelt thank you and from me, who is starstruck that I get to ask you anything I've ever wanted to ask you. So thank you so much for doing this interview.
Absolutely my pleasure. It's I was looking forward to it. So
Oh,
I'm
good.
again I'm grateful to be here.
Good. I love it. Tyson, we have come to the end. Thank you so much for coming on this podcast. This is truly, I mean it, a dream come true that you've just completed for me.
Thank you very much, Jocelyn. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun, and yeah, that was good.
I want to say a huge thank you to Tyson for coming on the Degrassi Kid podcast. Like I said, this was a dream come true. I feel so grateful that I got to meet Tyson and even more that I got to pick his brain about his time on Degrassi. So thank you so much, Tyson. We're also saying a thank you to all of our Patreon subscribers who helped make this episode possible. First, we're saying a welcome to Fiona, who is our newest member on the Degrassi Kid Patreon. Thank you so much for your support. It means the world to me. And we're giving a shout out to members like Jolene, Amber, Degrassi CSI, Angelica, Christopher, Dave, Nicholas, Sarah J, and Shannon for joining at the highest tier possible and supporting the podcast. We're also sending our love to Alyssa, Alana from the New Year, New Look, New podcast, Angie, Becca, Brittany, Katrina, Christine, Chrissy, Cosmo, Darcy, our amazing editor, Eevee Pacini, who runs her own Degrassi podcast called Degrassi Schools In. You should check it out. Emily, Gina, Honey, Jamie, James from the Bruce Mackey's Library podcast, Jessica, JL, Joey, Catherine, Casey, Kristen, Kylea, Crystal, Lindsay, Lizzie Games, Megan, Mackenzie, Mina, Mike, Nikki, Rebecca, Randy, Rachel, Racine, Renee, Sarah, Shane, Scooby89, Sam, Stephanie, Sanita, Taylor, Tierney, and Zach, and of course Nixon from the Degrassi Generations Facebook group. I recommend you join. Thank you so much for all your support in making my dreams come true. I love you so much. Bye.